Hi, welcome back. We're reading The Unquiet Dead by Dr. Edith Fiore, Chapter 3, Historical Observations of Spirit Possession. In the last quarter of the 20th century, many consider it superstitious to believe that spirits of the dead are a cause of misery and suffering among the living. This is particularly true now, since most scientists are committed to finding biological causes for nearly every human disease, mental as well as physical. However, a brief glance at the literature reveals that throughout history, people frequently have attributed the roots of much illness to possessing spirits, and many different rituals have been used to exorcise them. Jesus himself was reported to have cast out spirits on many occasions. For example, Jesus preached and cast out devils, Mark 1:39. I am abridging this chapter. The next quote is from Luke 8:27, another reference to Jesus casting out devils. From Matthew 10:1, Jesus gave his 12 disciples power against unclean spirits to cast them out. Even before the birth of Christianity, the ancient Greeks and Romans held well-established beliefs about the so-called dead and their effects on people. Homer wrote, "A sick man pining away is one upon whom an evil spirit has gazed." Plutarch wrote, "Certain tyrannical demons require for their enjoyment some soul still incarnate, being unable to satisfy their passions in any other way, incite to sedition, lust, wars of conquest, and thus get what they lust for." There have always been various viewpoints regarding the nature of possessing spirits. In some cases, people believed that they were actually the deceased. In other instances, they speculated that some spirits had never been in human form, but were instead servants of Satan or even Satan himself. In this chapter, we shall be examining the former. One of the most highly developed philosophies of the spirit world and its relation to living people comes from Asia. The ancient religion of India, based on the Vedas, which are holy scriptures, was the forerunner of modern Hinduism and Buddhism, which millions still practice today. Often, according to Vedic theory, ignorant or malicious discarnates seek out living people to possess in order to continue their earthly life. They are able to gain access because the astral body, visible to them in the person's aura, has some defect through which they enter. After they have incorporated, they exert their control, which is always of a negative nature. This view of possession has been passed down in India and Tibet and is now part of the famous Tibetan medical tradition, which is practiced by the expatriate Tibetans in northern India. Some of the tenets of the ancient Vedic tradition resurfaced in the West during the 19th century in two movements, theosophy and spiritualism. Although they held many conflicting beliefs, both of these viewpoints strongly held to the belief in the continuation of the individual personality after death. Since our search has to do with possession by earthbound spirits, of particular interest is the influence of these two movements on healers in various parts of the world. Spiritualism had a profound and catalytic effect on South American mysticism through the books of French writer Allan Kardec, Kardec. Kardec wrote on the immortality of the soul and the nature of spirits and their relationships with men. He claimed his books were dictated to him by spirits of a higher degree, transmitted through mediums. Today, the influence of spiritualism has led to rituals of depossession used by healers, mediums, and even some modern medical doctors and psychologists in South America. While lecturing at the First International Congress on Alternative Therapies in Sao Paulo in 1985, I was given a tour of the Federation of Spiritism of Sao Paulo, which is an organization housed in a large school-like building. 3,500 mediums, coming from all walks of life, from illiterate servants to lawyers, treat 15,000 patients per week, without a fee. Since the mediums believe they are being used by healers from the spirit world, it is an article of faith not to charge. Their work mainly consists of removing spirits by depossession, depossession. I was told at the Federation that 1 out of 5 inhabitants of Sao Paulo is a medium. There are 12 million people living in Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is no exception. Mediumship is rampant in all of Brazil. In the United States, an early spiritualist psychiatrist, Carl Wickland, M.D., worked for 30 years with severely disturbed patients who he felt were possessed by earthbound entities. His wife, Anna, a trance medium, allowed the possessing spirits to speak through her vocal apparatus. Dr. Wickland then conversed with them in a two-way exchange and convinced them of their condition. After educating them about the life waiting for them, he persuaded them to leave. With some recalcitrant spirits, he would have to resort to using a type of electroshock therapy to forcibly drive them out of his patients. He believed that a group of helpful spirits, the Mercy Band, assisted him in removing the entities, and later oriented them in the afterworld. In his book 30 Years Among the Dead, first published in 1924, is a classic in the field of depossession therapy. In it, he outlined his theory of mental illness by spirit possession and included lengthy transcripts of the counseling sessions he had with the spirits who spoke through his wife's mediumship. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, a spiritualist scholar, had this to say about him in his book. I have never met anyone who has such a wide experience of invisibles. No one interested in obsession or the curing of insanity by psychic means should miss this book. Another remarkable man, Edgar Cayce, Cayce, brought the issue of spirit possession as a cause of disease to the attention of the public. As an uneducated man reared on a farm in Kentucky, Cayce found that he could enter into a hypnotic trance and answer questions on any topic. From 1900 to his death in 1945, he gave more than 14,000 trance readings. Most were for sick people whom standard medicine had not helped. Although a Southern fundamentalist Christian and Bible expert while awake, in trance, Cayce channeled past life and mystical readings that discussed concepts of karma, reincarnation, meditation, the theory of ascending planes, multiple bodies, spirit possession, and much more. In his discourses on earthbound spirits and spirit possession as a cause of mental illness, Cayce went beyond most writers on this subject, suggesting complicated physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual causes for the possession. The cures he prescribed for possession while in trance included the internal use of gold, special low-voltage electrical devices, chiropractic adjustment to close off entrance to the nervous system, massage, dietary reform, and a number of other naturopathic and spiritual techniques. More recently, in 1982, a British psychiatrist, Arthur Girdham, Guirdham, MD, reported his findings in his book, The Psychic Dimensions of Mental Health. Basing his conclusions on his work of more than 40 years, he believes that every form of severe mental illness can be caused by spirit interference. Deeply committed to healing patients, his techniques are similar to Wickland's. He too uses electroshock therapy to dislodge stubborn possessing spirits. Adam Crabtree, a practicing therapist and scholar of mesmerism, also works with possessing spirits. In Multiple Man, Explorations in Possession and Multiple Personality, he describes his understanding of patients' conditions in terms of both possession by earthbound spirits as well as multiple aspects of people's own personalities. His techniques are more of the persuasive type, as he does not use electroshock. He also works therapeutically with the possessors. There is now a rapidly expanding number of mental health workers who use a variety of depossession techniques. As their work is becoming known, others seek training. Besides the authors discussed above, there are many other excellent therapists who daily are freeing patients from crippling emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual problems and symptoms by releasing ignorant lost souls who are the true recipients of the therapy. We have seen that throughout recorded history, and probably much earlier, people have believed in possession by earthbound entities. This belief has cut across all boundaries in terms of both time and social structure. Unsophisticated people, as well as learned scholars and great philosophers, have espoused this viewpoint. That does not prove its validity, of course. Like reincarnation, life after death, the soul, and many other concepts, spirit possession most probably cannot be proven. For me, as a therapist working with troubled, unhappy people in pain, emotional as well as physical, the issue of proof is not a priority. Results are. Because depossession therapy eliminates pain and suffering, in my view, its continued use is justified. An understanding of the death process is essential to our continued search into the motivations behind possession, and also to its solution. The following chapter will show you how patients experience their deaths and after-death states as recalled under hypnosis.